Welcome back. So let's look at Reliance Industries and the performance in the Q1 and what that tells us, the expectations for the rest of the year as well. Thanks to that one-time gain of 8,900 crore rupees from the Asian Paints stake sale, of course, profits were substantially higher. But even after adjusting for that gain, profits are still up 20%. And the rapid store expansion at Reliance Retail helped that part of the business show up an over 11% rise in revenue and a near 29% increase in profits with very steady margins for Reliance Retail. Mr. Ambani has reiterated that the group will double in size every 4 to 5 years. We now have Mr. Probal Sen, Energy Analyst at ICICI Securities, Karan Taurani of Elara Capital and Gaurav Malhotra at Axis Capital, all of us to join in to discuss different parts of Reliance's business. So let's start, with the good and very clearly retail firing along. Telecom being very steady has been good. And then we'll talk about the energy and O2C as well. But Karan, since I think retail was perhaps the best in the business, considering the growth rates that have been outlined, what is your sense on retail and, how would you expect the build-up for the rest of the year?
Hi, good morning. If you look at Reliance in terms of the performance this quarter for the retail business, it's been a steady performance. Majorly one big negative impact, which was there in the last 4 to 5 quarters in terms of store closure, that is kind of moving away right now. So if you look at the numbers on a quarterly basis, they were largely shutting down 4 to 5% of the network stores in terms of the retail business. This quarter, that number is shrunk to about 0 to 1%, which is largely in the range of what it was about 5 to 6 quarters back. So they had expanded aggressively in the last 2 to 3 years. And because of that, there was some rationalization in place. One more key thing to watch out here in terms of numbers would be the performance of JioMart. So JioMart on a small base has grown well. They continue to focus in terms of the non-metro market. Quick commerce, as we all know, will scale up in the non-metro markets also eventually, and there JioMart could have an edge. Execution is a key here in terms of how they actually execute JioMart through the network of Reliance Retail, because they've got more than 2,000 grocery stores. So I think that's one category which is very important in terms of how things pan out from here on. Thirdly, I think in terms of the other digital businesses, if you look at the white goods business, if you look at Jio, there's steady double-digit growth there, and the momentum continues over there.
Okay, that's Reliance Retail. Coming to Gaurav now. Gaurav, were you satisfied with the telecom performance? I mean, we're talking about, I think, the ARPU going up to 209. And everyone's watching out for some indication of when this Jio IPO will happen. We don't know if we'll get some indication in the AGM or not. But your thoughts?
Yeah, so see, Jio actually was a very good set of numbers. If you see across the board, the net adds were very strong, the highest across the industry. ARPU, there was an uptake both on the fact that, this quarter had one additional day, but there was also some premiumization happening. FWA, the fixed wireless broadband, that is going very good. The company has almost an 80% market share there. And lastly, on the operating leverage side also, we saw a healthy margin expansion. So on the whole, there's really nothing to complain. The company is doing quite well, both across operating as well as financial parameters.
Okay, got that. Probal, coming across to you then. How are you feeling about the numbers? The O2C business, it had a couple of one-offs. There was a shutdown out there. Production was a little bit lower. But your take on the O2C business, which was a bit of a sore point, but the street doesn't seem too concerned. Your reading?
Yeah, I think it missed estimates primarily because I think the impact of the 21-day shutdown was perhaps underestimated to a certain extent. If you look at petrochemicals, in fact, QQ, most of the product spreads have actually improved. Even in refining, there seems to be a little bit of traction because of diesel inventories being lower and the US driving season likely to provide some incentive. I think long-term prospects remain a bit uncertain. Nobody really knows where the cycle will end up, both on refining and petchem. But as far as this quarter numbers go, I think, people will shrug it off because there was a one-off. And what would be more interesting is to see the second and third quarter numbers, if there is some recovery that happens in refining, as well as, petchem remaining steady itself will provide some traction. So, I wouldn't be too worried about the miss, at least in this quarter.
Probal, hi, morning. I wonder if you've started ascribing some sort of value, some numbers to the new energy business. I saw some notes over the weekend where now that we have, I think, timelines, 10 gigawatts of this entirely integrated facility, right? Polysilicon going up to modules. I think it comes on stream maybe by the end of this fiscal. So any sense on how we can start valuing the new energy business?
I Actually, while it's still very difficult to build in numbers in terms of earnings, we have anyways been ascribing about 1.5 times capital employed, the initial plans of 750 billion rupees. So that's something that we have been ascribing for some time, which translates to about 150 rupees a share. You're right that the visibility on this business continues to improve. I would just like to say that I think the timeline mentioned by the management in terms of getting everything done is in the next 4 to 6 quarters. So maybe FY27 second half is when we would probably see more, all of this coming together and really starting to flow. But it would be done in phases. So some part of it may start to reflect from the second half of this year itself, some part from probably first half of next year. So we'll have to see that. But we have been ascribing some value to it in any case as a multiple of capital.
Okay, so basically by the end of this year, beginning of next fiscal, we'll start getting clearer visibility on that side of the business as well. So that'll be one important trigger for the stock overall. Second trigger, like Gaurav mentioned, obviously is going to be any hint of the Jio IPO and value unlocking is going to be a big one. Karan, back to you on retail. Q1, as you said, was phenomenal. What is the kind of growth rate you're penciling in for Reliance Retail at a time when, the overall consumer space still seems to be in a funk and the expectation is it'll grow? I mean, I'm talking from a pure play retail perspective. There's D-Mart, there's obviously Trend. Now, this is part of Reliance. So how would the growth rates here for Reliance Retail compare with some of the others in the market? And what are your expectations for the year?
So on a high base, I think, Reliance Retail has kind of executed well. If you look at the likes of Trend, the growth rates are closer toward 20%, but that's only the fast fashion business. Reliance Retail is a conglomerate and they're present across multiple categories and segment and even in online. So from that perspective, I think these kind of growth rates will largely continue for the next 3 quarters going ahead. They may accelerate more towards 13-14% kind of a band. But we don't see like big delta positive surprises as far as numbers are concerned from here on for Reliance Retail. One is because they're at a very large base, reasonable base right now. Second very big reason is the stores, right? So I think if you look at the number of stores they're operating right now, the worst is over in terms of rationalization, in terms of cutting down stores. But still, we don't see any big expansion initiatives because the online business in every category, if you look at the BPC or if you look at the apparel category or the grocery category, all are struggling because of the online threat. So I think we don't see a lot of physical store expansion, which is why I say that the positive delta in terms of Reliance Retail seems to be over, at least in the near term. We'll have to see in terms of how this trend reverses in the medium to long term perspective.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, helpful conversation and gives us a fair amount of visibility on all the different parts of the various businesses. Thank you for joining in, all three of you. Well, on that note, we do have to take a very quick break. We'll keep discussing more stocks. So many earnings to go over. We'll have Prakash Devan joining in for exactly that in just a bit.